afternoon, everybody, and welcome into MASN All Access. I'm your host, Paul Mancano. Thanks so much for tuning into our live show on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And we are here to react to a very busy week and busy couple days for Mike Elias as he adds veteran pitcher and Cy Young winner Félix Hernández potentially to the rotation, adding the veteran righty on a minor league deal with an invitation to spring training. We're going to take your comments as we go along, reacting to the addition of Félix Hernández, whether he could make the rotation or not, potentially do $1 million if he does make the team, where he could fit into the rotation, and what the Orioles can expect from Félix Hernández. He's a 35-year-old veteran, signed with the Braves last year, ended up opting out, but of course he is much more well-known for his time with the Seattle Mariners. Two-time ERA title, won the Cy Young back in 2010, threw a perfect game in 2012. It looked like for a while he was building a Hall of Fame resume. Has fallen off a bit in the past couple years. Last couple years with Seattle, ERA inflated up over 5, and then struggled in his final year there before getting a send-off. The Orioles adding him on a minor league deal with an invitation to spring training. So there's really no commitment unless he comes to spring training camp in a couple weeks and performs well enough to make the team. So we're going to take your comments as we react to this addition of Félix Hernández, because on its face, quite an addition for the O's to get a potential future Hall of Famer, one of the best pitchers of the last couple decades. But of course, Félix Hernández is at this point pretty much past his prime. I think that's fair to say. The Orioles have gone down this route before, looking for a veteran pitcher to try to fill into their rotation and hope that they can get a boost from somebody who formerly was an excellent starter. We're going to talk about in a little bit the addition of Wade LeBlanc, who of course was with the Orioles last year. They're adding him back on a minor league deal and hoping that they can cash in on a better season from Wade LeBlanc. But Félix Hernández is the bigger story here, because what a resume for Félix Hernández. And I know some fans are saying probably got him 10 years too late, as Todd Palm says in our comments. Yeah, I think that's fair to say. A little bit later on in his career than you would have liked to get Félix Hernández, but we've seen him pitch at an incredibly high level at times against the Orioles over the course of his career with the Seattle Mariners. Mike Elias is clearly just hoping they can recapture just some of that magic, because he has been an excellent starter for the last couple of decades, big game pitcher, and if they can turn in and get a quality season in the 2021 season out of Félix Hernández, maybe he could be a trade piece by mid-season, and maybe they might be able to flip him for something eventually at the deadline. But in the meantime, they need to make sure that he is healthy and good enough, really, to make the team out of spring training. You would hope that he would be, considering this is a team that just traded Alex Cobb, is in desperate need of some starters at this point. Really, the only 3 starters returning are John Means, Dean Kramer, and Keegan Aiken. 2 of those guys were rookies during the 2020 season. And then the other 2 spots in that rotation are open at the moment. There are some internal candidates. A Thomas Eshelman, maybe a Jorge Lopez could fill into this spot. But Félix Hernández, despite not being in the organization prior to yesterday, does come in with a little bit of a leg up in camp, just given his history as an excellent big game pitcher over the past couple decades. Taking some more comments. I want to hear from you guys. Where do you think he fits into this rotation? Do you expect anything much from him in this 2020 season? Toby on Facebook saying good signing. I saw somebody on YouTube as well saying a match made in heaven, just considering the fact that this is a guy that could revitalize his career at this point. 35 years old, 34 years old rather, turns 35 1 week into the 2020 season. So a veteran for this starting staff. That John Means is going to be their opening day starter. He's just 27. Both Dean Kramer and Keegan Aiken, both around the 24, 25 years old mark. And then there are several other guys during the course of the 2021 season that we expect might make their debuts in the starting rotation. Let's take a look at some of the starters that might fill in by season's end, because I know what you're thinking. You're looking at the regular starting rotation that we are parsing out, looking a couple of weeks ahead to spring training and thinking, not going to get the job done in the AL East. Well, there are some guys in their system already that might make their debuts in 2021 and might make an impact with the O's at some point during the season. These 4 guys in particular, I think, stand out. All 4 of them are in MLB Pipeline's top 30 prospects in the Orioles system. Michael Baumann ranks as a top 10 prospect. He's just 25, pitched at the AA level in 2019 and was with the alternate site in Bowie. Zach Lowther, the 11th ranked prospect in the system. He's just 24. Kevin Smith, who they acquired from the Mets at the trade deadline during the 2020 season in a deal for Miguel Castro. He's just 23. And another lefty, Alexander Wells. All 4 of these guys were at the Bowie alternate site during the 2020 season. All 4 of them have experience at the AA level, and I think any one of them, potentially all 4 of them, could make their debuts in 2021. So if you're looking at the potential rotation for the O's to start the season, that's probably not what it's going to look like by season's end. So keep that in mind as we go along and as we get ready for spring training, which is just crazy enough, 2 weeks away at this point for them reporting to Sarasota, Florida. Taking more comments on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter where we are live. Brooks McLeod saying, I like this move. If our pitching coaches can get through to him, could be potentially really could get something good back at the trade deadline. And I think that is the thinking here with Mike Elias, trying to maybe recoup something for him in a couple months when the trade deadline comes along. Team could look at him and say, we're ready to make a playoff push. Here's one of the best pitchers of the past 20 years. Let's go out and get him for a prospect or 2. And the pitching coaches will definitely be working with him, and it is a new pitching coach in Chris Holt, who is, of course, the pitching coordinator. So he is being, put in a spot where he can maybe get through to a veteran while also working with some of the rookies and some of the young guys during this 2021 season. Douglas on Facebook saying, who knows, low risk? Absolutely. They are not guaranteeing anything to Félix Hernández other than an invitation to spring training and a minor league deal. If he does make the team, according to reports, that's $1 million that they will be paying him, which still, considering what Félix Hernández gave the Seattle Mariners for 20 years almost, that would be a bargain. They're just hoping he comes to Sarasota healthy and ready to compete for a starting spot during the 2021 season as well. We mentioned Félix Hernández, obviously the bigger name, but Mike Elias also added another veteran, a veteran lefty, a little bit older, 36 years old, Wade LeBlanc, of course with the Orioles during the 2020 season. He had his season cut short by about a month after he had an elbow issue, and was not phenomenal in those few games that he did start in Baltimore. Had an ERA up over 1 with a 1-0 record. Not terrific, and we're combining his 2019-2020 stats here to make it seem a little bit better in terms of what he brought to the team and what he could bring to the team in 2021. ERA 6.08, 105 strikeouts to 39 walks. Nip velocity has never been his calling card, but he is a crafty lefty who might be able to give them a little bit something out of the gate. And maybe by midseason, they can flip him. I think that was most likely their plan last year when they added him to the team. And if not a huge risk. Again, Wade LeBlanc, like Félix Hernández, coming on a minor league deal. Charlie Thornton fact-checking me here, saying 15 years with the Mariners. Did research before the show. Everything is live, so it's coming out at some point. And yeah, 15 years. So a decade and a half as opposed to 2 decades. Apologies. We are taking more comments on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, where we are live, of course. Reacting to the additions both of Wade LeBlanc and of Félix Hernández. We want to hear what you would expect the starting 5 to be once the season begins in April. Of course, John Means is going to be your opening day starter, barring something crazy. 27 years old, ready to make his start on opening day on April 1st. Then Dean Kramer and Keegan Aiken, both rookies during the 2020 season, but guys that showed you enough that they can stick in this rotation beyond the 2020 season, see what they can get in 2021. There were a couple internal candidates before the additions of Hernández and LeBlanc. We kind of threw in a Jorge Lopez, maybe a Thomas Eshelman, maybe a Bruce Zimmerman at this point. But I think considering the fact that they are bringing back 2 veterans here, I think for now we're going to slot them in their starting rotation and assume that they don't get replaced at some point by a rookie at some point. All right, taking more comments as we go along on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube. Eric Bull saying, could we find a better replacement for Alex Cobb? I think considering what Alex Cobb gave you during the 2020 season and really over the course of his contract with the Orioles, that production is not going to be incredibly difficult to replace. He had a 4.30 ERA last year with the Orioles, gave you 10 starts. So that was fairly quality, but I don't think that's going to be too difficult to cobble together in the group that you have with LeBlanc, Félix Hernández, and then some of the rookies that I just mentioned. They might take a slight step back in the rotation, losing Alex Cobb, but there was no guarantee Cobb was going to stay healthy considering his injury history in the past. And all of these moves are essentially going to come together. They're hoping that the summation is bigger than the parts individually. We'll see exactly who starts during that opening week, and we'll see who sticks in the rotation because things could change. Keep in mind, 2 years ago, John Means was not a starter in this rotation in the year he eventually made an all-star game to start the season. That rotation looked very different. John Means eventually got into the starting rotation during the 2019 season and performed very well. So they're hoping that they maybe can get some kind of performance like that from somebody like a Zach Lowther, Michael Baumann, Alexander Wells. Not in the starting rotation to start the season, but at some point earns a spot in that starting rotation and runs away with it. And there are certainly internal candidates there as well. Well, Wade LeBlanc certainly enjoyed his experience in Baltimore, and despite the fact that he had his season cut short by injury and didn't perform particularly well in the few starts he did get in Baltimore, back in September we had a conversation and he kept the door open to return to the Orioles, noting in particular what he liked from the coaching staff, what he liked from the energy in the clubhouse, and he seemed to enjoy his role as a veteran leader.
I tell you what, I really enjoyed it around those guys. I think the staff was phenomenal. From the ways they communicated with guys, the ways they kept players in the loop, the way they cared about guys as individuals as opposed to just a number on the back of a jersey. And then the guys in the clubhouse were all pulling on the same side of the rope. And that's really all you can ask for from 25 guys, especially in a situation like this year presented. It was such a challenge, and those guys did such a great job, man. It was a blessing to be around that clubhouse for sure.
So that was Wade LeBlanc back in September, kept the door open to return to the Orioles, and now he does return to the Orioles yesterday on a minor league deal with an invitation to spring training. So similar to Félix Hernández, no guarantees that Wade LeBlanc is going to be on the team in 2021, but it certainly looks like he could make this rotation given the number of open spots they're going to have on opening day. We're taking more comments as we're live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Keep these coming. I want to know what you guys think of this move, bringing in Félix Hernández, and then the secondary move, bringing back Wade LeBlanc. Taking comments from Natalie on Facebook, mentioning the fact that John Means' ERA last year, we threw up that graphic with the potential starting five for the rotation. That ERA was a little bit inflated, but Natalie brings up the fact that you had a different John Means in the second half of the 2020 season than you did in the first half. He was struggling with some things personally, going through some loss in his family, while also trying to deal with the fact that he had added several ticks to his fastball, was trying to determine how much to use that increased velocity in his fastball, struggled out of the gate, eventually, took some time away, came back to the team, figured something out, had a conversation with Brandon Hyde mid-season where Hyde essentially said, this is not who you are. We know you can be a big game pitcher. Lowered that ERA all the way down under 5. So that ERA looks a little bit inflated for the 2020 season, but if the O's could get the John Means that they saw in the last month of the season to extend into the 2021 season, I think he will return to form, maybe potentially be their all-star representative by mid-season in 2021. Eric on Facebook commenting, smart moves to get Félix and Wade back if they do a great trade for them at the deadline to get more prospects. Again, this is the thinking with Mike Elias when he brings in all of these veterans. Even Freddie Galvis, who he said is going to be their opening day shortstop, who they added just a couple days ago. They're thinking maybe these guys can be a veteran presence in the clubhouse, give us a little bit of a boost when they are on the field. And then after that, if they perform well enough by midseason, they might be somebody that we could flip to a contending team, get a prospect or two back. And it has been a strategy that has not worked every time, and that's to be expected. They are not going to work every time. They're not going to be able to flip every single veteran for some prospects, but when it does work, it works incredibly well. Look at Alex Cobb getting you one of the better prospects in the Angels system a couple days ago. Jose Iglesias, rather, earning you some prospects as well from the Angels. So this is a strategy. Tommy Milone, going back to the 2020 season, that got you some prospects from the Atlanta Braves. So it is a strategy that works at times, and Mike Elias has shown the ability to flip some of these veterans for some prospects as well. All right, I've been talking for far too long. Mike Elias has had quite a busy couple weeks. If more news breaks, we will certainly be here to break it down at some point. But in the meantime, stay tuned to MASNsports.com, where Rock Kabako and Steve Molesky will have you covered. And of course, the MASN All Access podcast with myself and Brendan Mortensen will have you covered with another episode coming out next week. On our most recent episode, we talked about Freddie Galvis and the Alex Cobb trade. You can hear that podcast on Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Watch it on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, and react live as you have been doing for this show as well. So stay tuned for that. If more news breaks, again, we will have you covered. But in the meantime, thanks so much for tuning in. We appreciate your comments, and we appreciate you following along as we have been going. I'm Paul Mancano. Thanks to Brendan Mortensen behind the scenes, and we'll see you later.